What is up, everybody? How is it going? Austin Prechtelevate Performance, coming at you live. Happy freaking Wednesday, right? Wednesday, yes. It's Winning Wednesday. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're having a good day. We are going to jump into this episode of the podcast, because I got a podcast now. And if you guys haven't gone over there and subscribed yet, please do. Please feel free to do it. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's the Fit Parent Project. Yeah, so having a good time with it so far, though. Having a good time with it so far. And as you guys are tuning in, let me know how your day is going before we kick this thing off here in just a few minutes or seconds, honestly. But like I said, feel free to say hi in the comments. Hopefully I'll be able to see it on Facebook. Sometimes you can't when it's on mobile, but if I don't see your comments, I'll definitely be responding to those afterwards. But yeah, say hi if you're here. We're going to get this thing kicked off here in just a second. Today, though, we're going to be talking about basically like why you need to stop letting the scale ruin your freaking day, because it is something that a lot of people struggle with, and I'm going to talk about why to like kind of get it through your head, to help you get it through your head and work through that mindset issue, I guess, in a sense, and as to why it's not as big of a deal as you may think it is. And so we're going to be talking about that, and we're going to get things kicked off here in just a moment. But yeah, before we do, man, I've been this part isn't going to be on the podcast, so I have just been so freaking dialed in, like I get like hyper fixated on things sometimes, and for me lately that thing has been the fucking Hamilton soundtrack. And so since Jessica and I went and saw Hamilton this last weekend, I have been listening to it pretty much nonstop, like almost every waking hour that I've had, I've just had it playing in the background. Like we were playing dice games last night, and I was like, "Hey, can I put on the Hamilton soundtrack so we can listen to the songs?" And I've almost memorized like a majority of the songs already, and it's only been since Sunday. So just to kind of give you an idea of how much I've been binge listening to it. So if you're watching this right now, feel free to tell me what your favorite song is from the Hamilton soundtrack. But I've just been man, it has been stuck in my freaking head. My favorite song so far, personally, I think is Satisfied. I don't know. I just fuck with that song. It's just so good. So anyways, yeah, if you hear me humming it at any point in time, that's why. But let's get this started. Let's get this kicked off. We're going to start the podcast off here in just a second in about, let's see, we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Fit Parent Project. Let's freaking jump into this episode. Today, guys, we are going to be talking about why you should not let the scale dictate your day. Because oftentimes, this is something that everybody goes through whenever they're on a weight loss journey, whenever they're on a fitness journey, whenever somebody is, and it happens a lot too, for parents, and especially I've noticed, a lot of clients of mine and people that I know, postpartum, it's something that they, can kind of get obsessed with checking the scale on. Because sometimes whenever you're, gaining baby weight, you're checking the scale pretty consistently. But then whenever it comes time to being done, after, having the baby postpartum, a lot of times, we've gotten into this habit of checking the scale. Or maybe you're somebody that just, you like to see the number go down. But what happens whenever the number doesn't go down, right? When the scale doesn't say what we want it to say? Were you disappointed by it? Did it ruin your mood and set a pretty shitty tone for the rest of your day? Did it feel kind of like a punch to the gut after the anxiety and buildup of stepping on the scale felt like this, almost insurmountable, feeling to begin with, right? And of course, when you did step on the scale after you've busted your ass for the last week, it, didn't say what you wanted it to say. It didn't move at all, right? Or maybe worse, it went up, right? You gained weight, right? Even after you followed a plan consistently, assuming that it was a good plan to begin with, right? And you felt bummed and you felt frustrated and you probably started to shit talk yourself in your head, right? Some negative self-talk action. And because of that, you try to overcompensate in one way or the other, which causes you to end up defaulting to the extreme. You end up either punishing yourself by overly restricting your food that day, or doing an ass load of cardio to quote unquote make up for it. Or you felt so bad for messing up that you said, fuck it, and you went completely off the rails in the other direction, and you ended up binging or skipping the gym, and you ate like garbage all day. And I bet it wasn't the first time that has happened, right? Because I just want to say, like, just from the get-go, before we get too deep into this episode, fuck the scale, right? And yes, I just said that, fuck the scale. Because yes, is the scale a useful method to track progress? Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is absolutely a great tool to gather data, right? To kind of give you an idea of what direction, right, or where your journey is trending towards, right? But it is only one factor among many, 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 many factors that determine what progress is, right? Because it's definitely not even one of the most important factors. Because if you focus on things that I like to call non-scale victories, and everybody, it's not something that I call. I don't know why I said that. I didn't coin the term, but but what people call non-scale victories, right, are things like, asking yourself this, like, like, how do you feel, right? Do you feel good today? Do you feel like you have more energy than you've had in the past? Do you feel like you're getting, whenever you go to the doctor, does it say that you have like better health metrics? Like better, blood pressure, your cholesterol is better, your, feeling better, your heart rate has improved. Things like that. Your body fat percentage is lower, which, may mean that you get to come off of certain medications, like things like that are like, like liver values, like things like that are like, measurable, that aren't like a scale number, right? Do you feel more confident, right? Are you liking the way that you look more? Are you like, checking yourself out in the mirror a little bit more, and you're like, yeah, okay, not bad. I'm a big fan of what's going on here. Are you feeling stronger, right? Are you lifting heavier amounts in the gym? Do you have more endurance? Are you feeling empowered, or that you have like an improved mindset or better outlook on life? Maybe your relationship with food has changed, right? Maybe you have a better relationship with food where you don't view it as just, as food being bad or good. Maybe now you understand like the relationship with food, that, there's not really a bad or good food out there. It's more like, calories and energy balance and macros and micros and things like that. Maybe you're viewing things like that a little bit better, and you're like, man, I don't have to restrict myself like crazy to reach my goals. It's moderation in mind, right? There's a balance to these things, right? It's about consistency. And so maybe these things that you're starting to notice, right? Those are all measurements of progress that matter way, 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 way freaking more than just a number on the scale, right? Because I want to talk about this, because a lot of times what happens whenever people get on the scale, right, it doesn't say what you want it to say. And, you can, and I'm saying this too, like, you may have done everything fucking perfectly, right, for the week. You may have followed your plan perfectly. You may have you may have stayed within your calories. You may have done the cardio that you're supposed to do, or got your steps in. You did your workouts and everything like that. And then it still didn't say what you wanted it to say, right? But that is okay that has happened, because there are a lot of reasons why the scale might have fluctuated in a direction that you didn't want it to go in. And I'm going to talk about that here. I'm going to list off a couple of reasons why the scale might be up for the day. One might just be that you might have weighed yourself at a different time of day that you otherwise, wouldn't have, right? And that shit matters. That matters a lot, because water plays a role, right? Water plays a role. And whether that's because you literally drank more water or you were moving less, your hormones could have been causing a fluctuation. Sleep, poor sleep, inflammation from being sick in general. And so those things play a role on what the scale could say. Salt intake. You could have had a salty meal the night before. You could have had a big meal the night before. You might not have taken, just to be like raw on this podcast as possible. You might have to take a shit. You might have to take a piss. Who knows? Maybe you're constipated. Those things happen too, big time whenever your menstrual cycle hits. Things like that. Alcohol, right? Could cause you to hold on to more water. It can mess with your water balance. All of these things can impact the scale that aren't fat related, right? A lot of times whenever people step on the scale and it doesn't say what they wanted to say, they're like, oh my God. We instantly think, oh my God, I gained so much. How did I gain back all that fat that I just like burned off? Or how did I gain back all that weight that I just got rid of, that took me so long to get rid of? I'm here to tell you, like, 9 times out of 10, it's not body fat. It's water weight probably, or food or waste, or these other things that I just listed off that are playing a role. But because we are so we tie our self-worth so much to the scale, that we let it dictate our day, even whenever it's not even like for a bad reason that the scale is up, right? Not that it's even like, because we did anything wrong necessarily. It's just because it's a fluctuation. If you look at, anybody's like weight loss journey themselves, if you look at it, right, and you look at like if you have a graph, right, and somebody weighed themselves every single day, right, over time, like if you zoomed in, you would see some days are, they're like really high for their average. Some days they'd be really low for where they were. And those fluctuations over time average out to creating, and I'm doing some like hand motions. If you're watching this live right now and you can't see on the podcast, I'm kind of like doing some hand motions. But over time, the trend is what goes down. It's not necessarily in the day to day. There are fluctuations throughout the day that can be pretty crazy. For me personally, like my weight will fluctuate. If I weigh myself at the beginning of the day versus the end of the day, my weight can fluctuate anywhere from like 8 to 10 pounds in a single day. Like, that's crazy. If I weighed myself, if you weigh yourself, right, like in the mornings typically, right, and you're on a weight loss journey, you weigh yourself every morning, but then one day you check in and you weigh in in the evening and you see that the scale is like way freaking off. And then you start to like spiral because of it. Like, nothing changed. Like, you didn't gain a bunch of fat or anything like that, but because you're so you're tying your self-worth to the scale so much that it's like, that one moment where it's like, oh my gosh, I gained 8 pounds, F it, like what am I even doing? Like I'll never lose weight. Like in these stories that we're telling ourselves, because we're like, our mindset is so like vulnerable to like 3 numbers on a scale, right? On this little contraption that's on the floor, that it can ruin a lot of people's journeys. And I've seen it happen before for the folks that just can't like work through that mindset shift that they need to work through with letting the scale dictate their day. Like they're going to have a hard time. And just to be transparent, there are some people out there that I know right now are still having a hard time with that, even though they know better, right? Even though they do know better, even though they know that it's not a bad thing that the scale went up a little bit or even a lot of bit, depending on what's going on, right in your day to day. And so it's just one of those things that, if you can work through that and you can get that through your head that, not all the, like, fluctuations are normal. They're completely normal. And at the end of the day, there are so many ways to measure progress in your journey, like I just said, that it's not, like I said earlier, that it's not even funny. And so, and I want to emphasize too, right? Like, the scale is, like I said, one factor among many, but somebody can look, and this is just another example of it, somebody can look and feel completely different at the same weight, depending on how they got there, right? I think I may have mentioned this a day or two ago on here about how, I weighed like 191, 193 pounds whenever I first got into college. Fast forward, I don't even know how many years it's been, 6, 7 years, 8 years maybe now since then, maybe even longer, 9 years. And I was at that weight. I currently weigh like around 10 pounds less than that. And I look vastly different. I'm way fucking stronger than I was then. I have way more muscle than I had back then. I am like healthier than I was back then. Yet I weigh 10 pounds and I look way freaking bigger and more jacked than I did at that weight. But that's because at that weight, I didn't have all this muscle. I didn't have this body composition that I have, because you can get to the same weight. Like, you can be at the same weight, but it depends on how you got to that weight. And that's just another reason why, like, the scale is just one factor among many, because, if somebody were to say I weigh this much, and that makes me instantly that makes me unhealthy, or instantly that makes me this or that, when somebody could be at the exact same weight and they're chain smoking and eating and drinking alcohol every day, and they're binge eating fast food and all this other stuff, but they're at it just because they have a number on the scale. Somebody associates that they're healthier for whatever reason, and that just isn't true. And the opposite can be said in the other direction too. And so it's just one of those things that you got to be careful of, and just know that 3 numbers on the scale does not define your worth, right? And I'll be the first person to say your weight does not define your worth at the end of the day. We're in the business here of helping people feel healthy and happy and more confident and living a good life, right? Living a good life, living a long life. And it's one of those things that, the scale doesn't tell the whole story. And I want to emphasize that. And so, Yeah. But at the end of the day, guys, working through the mindset shift of, in my mind, it's like once you know more about this stuff and you realize, hey, like, Austin told me on this live that, yeah, the scale may be up a couple pounds today or this week, but there could be some things going on that I wasn't thinking about before. Whenever I let it kind of like cause me to have a shame spiral in a sense, which caused me to throw in the towel, or it caused me to fall off my plan for a couple of days or a couple of weeks or whatever. Now that that those fluctuations, and not only those fluctuations, but also just the scale in general, not being, the only factor when it comes to having a successful like fitness journey or health journey. Now that you know that, maybe the next time that you do step on the scale, you can, check yourself a little bit and remind yourself like, hey, like, I know that these other things could be going on or could be at play right now. So I'm not going to let it like, throw me off or, throw me complete. And fluctuations are normal too. Like sometimes maybe in your plan, it's just time for you to, reduce your calories, right? Which we'll talk about in future episodes, but like maybe it's time that you do a calorie drop. Maybe it's time to, maybe you were in a calorie deficit, but you've kind of, used up that wiggle room for weight loss at that current level of caloric intake. And now it's time to drop them. Maybe that's a factor. That's normal too. Sometimes, if you've been at it for a couple of weeks or like maybe a month at the same calorie amount and progress is starting to slow down a little bit, maybe that's going on too. That's just something I wanted to mention too before we got off this. But, it's one of those things, like there could be a lot of things going on. Just because the scale doesn't say what you want it to say, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that, it just means that you're on the journey. You're on the path, and it happens to everybody. It happens to me. It happens to like the vast majority of my clients. Nobody loses weight every single week in their journey. On the scale anyways. It's unrealistic to have that expectation for yourself. And so, set a realistic expectation. Be nice to yourself the next time that you step on the scale, no matter what. And if you need to, put a sticky note on the scale saying that, like, this is just a number. Like, I'm making progress. I'm still showing up for myself. Like, put a note on there to remind you of these things that I talked about today. As just a helpful, like mindset check every time that you do weigh yourself on the scale. Because like I said, it is important, a factor to measure, for the vast majority of people. If it's something that, is triggering to you, then don't do it, obviously. There's different routes you can go. But, at the end of the day, like the next time that you do step on that scale, like, be freaking nice to yourself, right? Be nice to yourself and realize that it's not the end all be all, right? When it comes to what is considered success or progress, right? Other than that, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope that this episode was valuable. I hope that, you got some good takeaways from this, or it was a helpful reminder to you the next time that you step on the scale, because we're all on this journey together, and we're all, working towards our goals. And at the end of the day, the nicer that you can be to yourself and the less that you can tie your worth to what those numbers say, I think the better off you're going to be. And yeah, I hope that this was valuable for you guys. Talk to you all later. Bye. Oh, was I recording that? I think I was. I hope I was. We'll see. Other than that, how's it going, everybody? Cool. Let's see. I got some comments here. Oh, I really hope it recorded that. Hey, it did. Okay, we're good. I was like, oh no, I don't have to I don't want to have to say this repeat this entire thing over again. What's up, guys? I see Brianna's here. I should just watch this every week. And by this, I mean the episode, not Hamilton, but that too. Let's see. Hey, what's up, Sarah? Yes, if the scale goes up, I flip it off and put it away. And by this, I mean, let's see. And then, what's up, Jessica? Hey. Let's see. This thing's being weird. What's up, Laura? Weight fluctuates a ton based on the time of day. Yeah, absolutely. And that's completely normal. Health is so much more than a number. Yes, it freaking is. I completely freaking agree. I agree. What was your guys' takeaway? What was your guys' takeaway from this episode or from this live? What did we learn from this? And yeah, feel free to tell me, any takeaways that you guys got from this. I can hang out on here for, another minute or two if you have any questions for me at all, about this topic. But yeah, it's just one of those things that, even I, right? And I wish I would have mentioned this too on this episode or on the podcast, but even I, like, I know all the fucking ins and outs of why the scale may be up, right? And even if I was perfect on my plan, and I did everything right, sometimes when the scale doesn't say what I wanted to say either, my first thought is like, fuck this. Like, this scale's just bullshit. Like, that goes through my head too. And I know that these things happen, but it's still, a lot of times for a lot of us, that's our first thought that we go to is like, I fucked up. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, why can this, like, stupid, like, robot not cooperate with me, right? Like it happens, right? Even I know all this shit. Like, I know all this shit. Yet it still sometimes, gets in my head a little bit too sometimes. And I'm like, we beat ourselves up over shit. We're our own worst critics. Even when we shouldn't be, even when the next day, when we weigh ourselves, it could very well say that we're down 2 pounds, and we just had an off day. But we won't know that, right? We won't know that could have happened if we throw in the towel whenever shit hits the fan, whenever it doesn't say what we want it to say. And a lot of times people are in this like all in, all out mentality, but you got to get away from that shit, because if you don't, you're going to have a hard ass journey ahead, honestly. And at the end of the day, just being nice to yourself, being nicer to yourself is truly, like, it's, and the people that reach this is an interesting concept too, is that the people that reach their goals, like, that see progress as quickly as possible and lose a ton of weight really fast and things like that, oftentimes, are the ones that fall off the quickest. Like, if the more consistent you can go, right? Slow and steady wins the race. It's the whole, like, fucking turtle in the hair type of shit. The more consistent and slow and steady will win the race. If you go, like, try to go 100 miles a million miles an hour, trying to do 10 different things all at once, like, overly restricting your calories, doing 8 billion miles of cardio a day, starving yourself, not letting yourself have any fun foods or anything like that. You try to do all these things at once, and yeah, you're going to see some quick progress, like a lot of fad diets and stuff too, or crash diets. Yeah, you're going to see some quick results. Yeah, you're probably going to lose more weight in a shorter period of time than somebody else who's, running the the marathon, but not the sprint. Yeah, you might see some quicker progress, but you're not going to have as long lasting progress, because you're going to fall off and you're going to crash and burn, and then you're going to gain it all back. Whereas the person who took it slow and steady, who made transitions over time, who was like, okay, I'm going to learn I'm going to get good with my tracking. Then I'm going to get good with my protein, and then I'm going to get good with my workouts, or I'm going to start going 3 days a week. And now I'm doing 4, now I'm doing 5, and working my way up to that shit. Like, that's a slow, over time. It's like, a good analogy is like, if somebody threw like cold water on somebody, like, they would just, like, get stunned and shocked or whatever. But if you, like, slowly over time, like, got yourself used to the water temperature of being cold, like, the temperature slowly changed over time, you're gonna be used to it, right? It's not gonna be such a shock to your system that's gonna cause you to, like, flip the fuck out and fall off, right? It's more like a general transition. You're like, okay, I can handle this. You stack a little bit more, okay, I can handle this shit. Stack a little bit more, okay, I can handle this shit. And before you know it, you're doing all these fucking things that are awesome and really good for you, and you build up these habits and these routines, and then you're like, happy as a clam, because you're on your way to your goals. And so, yeah, that's just something, just because you see somebody making, like, insanely good progress insanely fast doesn't mean that, over time, net weight loss over the period of time doesn't mean that they're, gonna make more, that they're making more progress than you are. At the end of the day, we're all running our own races, and so we should probably be paying attention to our own shit instead, watering our own grass instead of being so concerned with, other people making, I'm going to talk about that in another podcast. I think that's a really good idea, or a really good concept to cover and recover again. It's just like running your own freaking race, right? Because at the end of the day, it's you versus you. You're in your own, like, book. You're in different chapters of your lives and different fucking books. You can't compare yourself to other people. So, cool. Sweet. Awesome. Have a good freaking day, everybody. I'm going to hop off here. I'm going to get this uploaded, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.